1966 SS-396 Chevelle. Sweetly sorted stab and steer economy SS-396 proves itself the equal of 400 cube GM supercars costing hundreds more. Chevy has finally sorted out the Chevelle SS-396, GM's lowest priced muscle car, by combining it with a new close ratio HP Powerglide transmission. It does everything faster and with less effort. You were relieved of the Herculean labor of speed shifting Chevy's niggardly inland linkage 4-speed. The 366 is Chevy's second biggest mill and, like the other Chevy V8s, punches far above its weight. Low-priced $2,600 Chevelle uses 366 cubes to get 325 horsepower at 5,200 RPM. It has the same unsilenced air filter element and molybdenum-coated piston rings as the 425 horsepower Corvette 396, but uses hydraulic lifters and a milder camshaft. Chevrolet can make with only 409 cubic inches, and more recently 396, the same 425 horsepower that rival Plymouth makes with its 426 Hemi. So when it created a GTO contender, Chevy figured its biggest 396 engine shouldn't be allowed in a Chevelle, even though it's under the 400 cubic inch limit imposed by GM. Chevy instead went with a 366, in part because Chevy has argued for a 6-liter limit in the new intermediate class of NASCAR racing instead of the current 405 cubic inch limit. When the 366 debuted in the Malibu SS in January last year, it was roundly praised as GM's best supercar. In April of '65, a lower-priced Chevelle version of the SS-366 debuted. We called it Chevy's most underwhelming performer since the Blue Flame 53 Corvette. When we first tried the 325 horsepower 366, we thought the wide ratio 4-speed and 331 axle ratio were a bad combination, too easily prone to bogging off the line on one side of a razor's edge of throttle modulation and shredding the tires on the other. The 0 to 60 mile/hour sprint took just under 8 seconds. We could barely stay in the 15-second range in the quarter mile, our cutoff for entrance into the supercar club. Its only saving grace was surprising fuel economy of 15 miles per gallon overall, but the lack of inches wasn't the problem. In fact, we called the 325 horsepower 366 Chevy's finest all-around engine ever. Chevy's smaller displacement 366 engine weighs 20 pounds under the Olds 442, 50 pounds under Pontiac's GTO 389, and 80 pounds under the Skylark Grand Sports 401. This weight comes off the front wheels, improving rear traction. On our 1965 test car, the shifter linkage was far inferior to the Hurst-equipped Malibu SS 366, GTO, and 442, and it lost us a good 0.3 of a second in the quarter mile. Braking performance was unacceptable for a supercar since the Chevelle SS had 9.5-inch brake drums with soft asbestos lining, while the Malibu SS employed 11-inch drums with metallic linings from the big Chevrolet. While Malibu had standard power steering with a lightning-quick 15-to-1 ratio, the Chevelle came standard with 30-to-1 ratio manual steering that made high-speed maneuvering a labor of dread. The consensus was that the budget-priced Chevelle SS 366 had cut too many corners to be a competitive supercar. The Z25 Chevelle SS lacks standard mag wheel covers of the Z16 Malibu SS, but includes the same rocker and wheel lip moldings, fake hood vents, blackout grille, and super sport badges. You can order all the luxury and trim options of the Malibu 366. But as great as the Malibu SS was, its $4,500 price tag meant it had very few takers. The $2,600 Chevelle SS version sold briskly, but quickly gained infamy as easy prey for the vaunted Pontiac GTO. So for '66, Chevy has reworked its two Super 366 Sports. Malibu's stiff $1,501 premium for the Z16 SS 366 is reduced to $990, as the option no longer includes the excellent stereo tape player, 160 mile/hour speedometer, and tilting steering wheel. The Z25 Chevelle SS eliminates the standard 4-speed for a new fully synchronized heavy-duty 3-speed manual with a 241 first gear and 157 second gear ratio. Chevelle SS can be ordered with most of Malibu SS's equipment, although the 360 horsepower 366, 15-to-1 Corvette steering gear, 11-inch brake drum, drums and rear anti-sway bar remain exclusive to the Malibu SS. Chevelle has an inherent handling advantage over heavier Buick, Oldsmobile, and Pontiac GM supercars. It can be pushed deeper into a corner before losing traction. Just keep in mind that the Z16 $4,000 Malibu SS holds a big advantage in power, braking, suspension, and steering. In order to increase sales for the Malibu SS-466, Chevy has concocted a new 360 horsepower 366. Last year, Malibu had a 375 horsepower 366 that used the 396 Corvette's 316-degree intake and 302-degree exhaust duration camshaft. The problem was its high weak idle was incompatible with air conditioning. The new Malibu 366 uses the same 11:1 compression ratio, 4150 Holley carburetor, big square port heads with 2.19-inch intake valves, open element air cleaner, and chambered dual exhausts, but employs a unique camshaft with 294 degrees of both intake and exhaust duration and a lift of half an inch. It offers an 800 RPM lower 5600 RPM power peak than the 425 horsepower Corvette 396 and employs low-maintenance hydraulic valve lifters. To milk all the performance from the 366, Chevy has reworked the Powerglide automatic so that it will offer better fuel economy than a 3-speed automatic, yet delivers similar performance. The new version employs a 1.66-to-1 low range instead of 1.76. The new close ratio Powerglide is optional on the 327 V8, which is installed across the entire Chevy panoply except for the Corvair. It comes in two different varieties. Combined with the 275 horsepower 327, it has a 12-inch torque converter and 34-degree stator angle for a 2.2-to-1 torque multiplication. It makes a 5,000 RPM upshift at full throttle and comes with the 307 cruise performance axle ratio, 308-to-1 on Corvette and Chevy 2. The primary advantage is superior highway drivability as it allows a full throttle kickdown into low range up to 70 miles per hour. This helps remedy the absence of an intermediate passing gear, the longtime Achilles heel of the Powerglide. On the 350 horsepower 327, Corvette 300 horsepower 327, the 325 horsepower 366, and 360 horsepower 366, you get an HP version with an 11-inch torque converter, 54-degree stator vane angle, and 5,500 RPM shift point. It delivers 2.5-to-1 torque multiplication at 2,000 RPM stall speed and comes with a 331 axle ratio on Chevelle's, 3.36 on Chevy 2 and Corvette. The HP version includes a positraction rear end, and you can order axle ratios of 355, 373, or 410. Drag gears of 456 and 488 are available for dealer installation, but we think our test car's standard 331 cog is a perfect street strip compromise. It allows reasonable cruising RPM of 3,000 RPM at 70 miles per hour. Not exactly an overdrive, but much mellower than the 3,700 RPM at 70 miles per hour you'd get with a 410 axle ratio. The Powerglide is almost as thrifty on gas as the 4-speed transmission, and highway cruising mileage is surprisingly efficient. Chevy has thought this through carefully and knew that at higher speeds even the loose high-stall torque converter mostly quit slipping. We were happy with the steady 60 mile per hour consumption of 18 miles per gallon. The HP Powerglide channels the power of the 366 with great utility. Our 66 Chevelle test car was much quicker than the 65 4-speed. With 2.5-to-1 torque converter multiplication, the Powerglide offers a 432-to-1 breakaway ratio that becomes a 166-to-1 geared ratio once the stator freewheels and stops multiplying torque. You have a low range that leaps off the line and reaches all the way to 75 miles per hour before shifting. The tester was far plusher than our 65 4-speed Chevelle SS 366 we sampled. Unlike the budget-oriented 65, it was graced with the far more comfortable strato bucket seats, power steering, and power brakes. We like the idea of a 366 Chevelle that's closer in luxury and performance to the Malibu SS 366. The sexier 66, however, is in many ways inferior to the boxier 65. The interior of the Chevelle has taken a big step backward in rear leg and headroom as the roof has been lowered 2 inches. The instrument panel is far worse than in 65. The giant sweep speedometer replaces the easily read round gauges. The extra-cost auxiliary gauges mounted by the steering wheel and center console are impossible to read without gazing away from the road. Chevelle maintains an advantage of the least overhang and lowest curb weight of the GM A-bodies at only 3,517 pounds. This means an SS-396 enjoys a 10.8 pound per horsepower ratio compared to 11 pounds for the GS400 Buick. Considering this alone, the Chevelle Supersport should be quicker than its GM rivals. Using up far less engine power to run itself, the Powerglide makes the Chevelle essentially a 340 horsepower car, at least compared to what it would be using the bigger, heavier turbo hydromatic 3-speed optional on the 396 Impala. The new performance Powerglide holds an advantage over the 4-speed when launching off the line. The torque converter cushions the power and allows easier throttle modulation than with the manual. The 1.6 to 6 to 1 low is a perfect fit for the 366. With a high stall speed, there's no creep at stoplights. Doing nothing more difficult than light power braking off the line, we were able to consistently turn 14.8 second, 94 mile per hour quarter-mile times. We found a method of slowly counting 1001 as we gradually applied the throttle at the prompting of the timing lights. If you stomp your foot, you will certainly leave clouds of tire smoke behind, but it can be avoided. A set of Kaesler 27-inch racing slicks could cut your ET by nearly a second, and all without even moving the lever out of drive. We tested 2 Royal Pontiac dealer-prepared Bobcat GTOs that have scored nearly a 1 second better elapsed quarter-mile times, but this was with the help of the tuning kit that blocks heat risers, uses bigger carburetor jets, and tweaks the valve train for extra RPM. Both examples also use drag strip axle ratios of 411 and 390 to 1. Some readers might be asking, what's the point of ordering up an all-vinyl interior with bucket seats and console shift, especially with a 2-speed automatic? Well, first of all, that one shift is an important one. The closer ratio made downshifting for compression braking on our Riverside Raceway road course easier. We lapped it in near record time for a sedan, partially aided by the fact that it can be navigated quicker by instantaneous shifting in and out of low range for good engine braking without inadvertently locking up the rear wheels. Even at highway speeds or around town, it shifts instantaneously at the flick of a lever, something Ford's manually shifted select shift in the Fairlane GTA doesn't actually do. The power steering has a far superior 20.4 to 1 ratio and 4.2 turns lock to lock instead of the 30 to 1 manual ratio. Chevy was also considerate enough to lavish optional power brakes and optional sintered metallic brake linings on our test car. The power brakes help cope with the metallic lining's higher pedal effort when cold. We insist these amenities be standard equipment, since they mostly remedied our grave concerns about the 65 Chevelle's ability to be enjoyed safely. The May issue's 4-speed car was a real chore to shift, brake, and steer. Our opinion of our 66 test subject is vastly improved from the 4-speed 65. While we consider a 4-speed more enjoyable and flexible all around, it was certainly not a bore driving the Powerglide SS. We like this midstream turnaround. The Powerglide 366 car could be steered with calm precision, braked in a dependable and predictable manner, and could give any supercar in the newly crowded 66 field a real run for its money. Even with the extra cost items, it still costs $500 less than the Malibu SS. Yogi Berra might say, the Chevelle 366 is a great budget supercar, if you spend enough money on it.